Thank you for being with us on the Live Greater podcast. Today we have a wonderful guest, Sian Hill. Welcome, Sian.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and I love to hear your accent. So can you give us a little bit of background, where you're living and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you might be able to tell I'm in the UK, in the kind of the middle part of the UK, if you're familiar with the UK at all. It's in the Midlands. And I am, for the last few years, I've been working as a trainer in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and I also coach people one-to-one as well. So really helping people with their mindset, their emotions, to work through the internal mental and emotional obstacles that stop them from achieving the life that they want. So that's the kind of the day job. So to
Okay.
speak.
And all that is so fascinating to me. And I think, everybody deals with it. Our mind is always with us, right? So we're always dealing with different things of how to work with our mind, our body and spirit, to me. But so can you go into about thoughts and the importance of how we control our thoughts or understand our thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Your thoughts are really, when you become aware of your thoughts, they're the gateway to show you where is the resistance that's stopping you from actually achieving what it is that you want. Most of our thoughts are unconscious to us. We operate, 90% of the day on autopilot. We're oblivious to what we're thinking. We just kind of rinse and repeat and end up getting the same results. And when you're ticking along in that kind of mode, or what could be called the comfort zone, not a lot happens.
Yeah.
It's only when we get to the extremes of life. So either when things get really bad and suddenly we know what we're thinking, or things get really good and we're like, hey, I didn't realize life could be this way, that we then start to focus on our thoughts and question, are they serving me or not? Our thoughts they're created through our perception of the world. Two people could go, or multiple people could go to the same event, they could have the same experience, yet give very different accounts of what happened and what they took away from it. So our thoughts are filtered through our lens of reality. The reason they're so important is that because our thoughts are linked to the way that we feel and our physiology. So our nervous system, how we actually show up in the world. And when our thoughts change, when our feelings change, when our physiology change, when either one of those changed, the other one changes as well. So by working with either one of those, you can create profound change. And the important bit of all of that is that what it leads to is the action that we take, the way that we show up in the world, the things that we're willing to do or not, which leads to the results. So thoughts are so much more than just like the things that are going on in our head. They have such a big influence and impact on the whole of our lives.
Yeah, they are, like you're saying, the perspective of, it's our perspective, what creates our world, right? And how we perceive things. And I think I was just recently talking to a friend about how, that someone can be thinking, or you're thinking that person is thinking something of you, which they're not really thinking, but it's just your perception. And so it creates your world. And so how can someone, you talked about comfort zone and how we just stay in our comfort zone because you're just doing the same kind of thing. You're not really thinking about it. So how can we comfortably get out of our comfort zone? Like where I think people are afraid, right, to get out of their comfort zone. So I guess you can't really comfortably get out of your, I guess, how can someone do it, get out of that comfort zone and be able to move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I say this quite a lot, and I should really learn how it's said correctly, because I think I butcher it every single time. But Tony Robbins said something along the lines of the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty that you can comfortably live with. So it is that kind of, how can I increase my threshold to it be able to tolerate more discomfort?
Yeah.
And I liken it a bit to going to the gym. It's like, how heavy a weight can you lift while still maintaining form, while still giving you the results that you want? And there's going to be some resistance there. Your mind, its primary role is to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you alive. It's not about thriving, it's about surviving. So anything that's unknown, that's uncomfortable, feels unsafe. So the mind kind of goes into shutdown and says, we're not going there. It's that's a threat. Now, there are many ways that you can work with this. A lot of the perception that we have in the moment is driven by past events. So if we've had events in the past where we've maybe had a similar experience, or we know somebody's experienced something like that, and we've been hurt, we've been scared, we kind of carry all that past baggage with us, and then we filter the world, we perceive the world through that lens. So we therefore think that same thing will happen again. And we create stories and meanings around it. So becoming aware first of how you think is great. You know, what are the thoughts that I'm having, and how might they be hindering me? Because you've got to know what it is that you're working with to kind of start working with it and to begin to. Then in an ideal world, everybody would kind of dive into the, you know, deeply into the unconscious and do the deep work and do the emotional release. And right now, today, something that you can begin to do is visualize things turning out well. Because as people, we kind of programmed to be on high alert. It's how we're born, how we're brought up. And therefore we picture and play out worst case scenario, disaster. And this is where anxiety and things come from. It's imagining the future going how we don't want it to. For safety, for protection. If I put it out, then I've got all the reasons not to do it. Whereas if we actually picture it going well, but not just picture the goal that we have going well, picture the goal beyond the goal. Because if our unconscious mind can see us after the event, after we've achieved the thing that we thought was really uncomfortable, and it knows that we're still safe, then it begins to soothe that resistance, because it's no longer so much of a threat.
So what you're saying is, like, you have this goal, but to see the future, the positive future, and not create these negative scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And even go further than that, as in, so here's the goal that I want in the future. What happens after I've achieved that? So you're almost talking your unconscious mind and your conscious mind through the scenario. Once I've done it, am I still safe? Did I survive? Did I not die in this scenario where I perceive that there might be a threat? Because, you know, people might judge me. I might get hurt. And that stuff feels as real as a real threat, because the nervous system, it doesn't know the difference. So by going out and picturing it all going well, it's like, oh, okay. Do you know what it is? It's hindsight in advance. Because, you know, after the event, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, I don't know what the big deal was about. I was okay. I survived. Yeah, we don't have that in the moment. So it's using your mind to almost imagine yourself after you've completed or achieved the very thing that you desire, and going and picturing it all going well, and then going, oh yeah, it worked out. I'm fine. I'm safe. I can do this.
That's great. So how would someone do that? Like, if someone's not used to doing that, if they're always just have that anxiety and don't want to get out of that comfort zone because of that, how can they work with their mind to create that scenario when it's might be difficult because of the fear?
Yeah, it takes practice. And I think this is where some people kind of hit up against a wall, and like, can you not just give me the quick fix, the pill that's just going to change it instantly? Now, change can happen in the mind really, really quickly. And even if you change a belief, if you change the way you think, you change the way you feel, you've still got to then go and embody that. And again, that takes practice, that takes doing things differently. So my recommendation with anybody is that if you're going to go and pursue something, make sure it's something that you really want to do. Because if you're doing it because you think you should, or because other people have done it, or because it was something you wanted to do as a kid, or comparison with other people, the minute you hit any kind of obstacle, that's going to be the excuse to give up. So firstly, check in, do I really want this, or am I just doing it because I think I should? Then if you decide it is what I really want, and that anxiety comes up, that fear comes up, practice going out into the future and imagining what it would look like if it turned out. And then almost, you can do that just through closing your eyes, pretending that you're floating out into the future, wherever that might be in your mind, and landing in that position. So you're watching the world as though, oh yeah, this is the life that I've created, the future that I've created, but I can feel it now and I'm safe. Because your mind doesn't know the difference between whether it's happening now or happening in the future or happened in the past. If we're living it now, we're experiencing it now, our body, we feel the emotions around it. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing then is to just, sounds really simple and really boring, and which is why so many people don't do it, one step at a time. It's like, have the vision, have the goal, and then just ask yourself, what is the one smallest thing that I can do today? And just do that. Just focus on the very next step, because, you know, when you're looking at the whole journey and it's like, how do I get to step number 348? Like, well, I don't know. By the time you get there, it's probably going to be changed anyway.
Right, right.
A bit like, you know, you put in your destination into the sat nav and the GPS, so you know where it is that you're heading. What you don't know is every single road that you're going to go on, the road work that's going to come up, the diversion with the traffic, the accident along the way. All these things happen. All you need to do is, what's the next road, and just follow that, and just follow that, and keep the vision whilst detaching from it at the same time. Which it's really simple to, you know, it's simple to say, and people want the big thing now. So it's like, that's where you've got to be the long term, in it for the long haul. Even if it's not, you know, it's something that you could achieve in 6 months. That's where it's like, is this true for me? If it didn't happen tomorrow, if it didn't happen next week, am I still in it? If I'm not, then do I really want it?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And what you're saying is just, you got to take that next step. And that, I mean, one step is going to get you moving forward. And it doesn't need to be that 400th step yet, right? And like you're saying, it changes along the way. And so flexibility is important with having our goals, but then you have to be flexible along the way. I love that. So the main key is just taking that step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said with the flexibility, because it may be that as you're on the path, you realize, you know what, the destination has changed slightly as I've learned things. So you could spend the whole time planning out the whole journey, like weeks and weeks preparing, perfectionism kicking in, and then you take the first left turn and you go, actually, do you know what, I prefer it over this way. And you say, I've got to reroute the whole map now. And you know,
yeah, right.
rather than use your energy on that, just do that small step, which again can relieve that fear, because it's like, it's just one small step. Let's just picture myself doing that one small step really, really well, and check in, how would I feel if I was able to achieve that? And it then becomes a lot more doable.
Yeah. Can you give us a small example of that, of someone who sets a goal, but how do they know this, you know, they take that step, but how to navigate getting to the goal, but being flexible at the same time?
Yeah. So when you're setting a goal, it's about working with your two minds. So you have your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. Your conscious mind being everything that you're aware of in the moment, you know, the sound of my voice, the stuff that is in your conscious awareness. Your unconscious mind is everything else that's going on. So the sounds in the background, the temperature of your breath as you breathe in and out. It runs your body. It's doing so much work for you, yet most of it you're oblivious to until you bring it into your conscious awareness. Now, the conscious mind is responsible for about 5% the conscious mind, 95% the unconscious mind. The role of, when it comes to goal setting, the role of the conscious mind is to set the goal. What is it you want? That's it, job done.
Okay.
The drive, the why, the how, the when, all comes from the unconscious mind. So it's almost letting go and trusting that it's going to deliver. You've set the target. Now all you've got to do is take the next step. Where the flexibility really comes in with this is being open to, there are many ways that this can happen, because there can sometimes be this kind of fixed approach. Here's this goal. This is how it has to happen. These are the 25 steps that will lead me there. When we do that, what we're doing is taking the bits that we know from maybe from other people or something that we've read. This is how they did it, so therefore that's how it must be done. We're looking for certainty. Goes back to that safety. We want to know, if we know how it's going to happen, then we'll be okay, and I can act on that. Whereas the unknown, the uncertainty of what the next step might be, can be, oh, this is scary again. Where do I go with this? Yeah. In telling your unconscious mind this is the way it has to happen, what you then do is shut off all the other possibilities, all the other things out of your awareness, that the ways that it could happen. So let's say, for example, somebody decided their goal was, I'm going to create a relationship. You know, I'm single, ready to mingle, and I want to find me a nice partner. So they decide the goal is to have a partner by the end of the year. And with that, their way of finding a partner is the same as the way that their friend found a partner. So she went on an app, a dating app, and she found the right man, and they lived happily ever after. So she decides, I'm going on the dating app and this is how it has to happen. You know, I don't know anybody else that's achieved it this way. So I'm going to swipe right and go on a date. And there you go. That's the way the unconscious mind is like, right, I've got to discount all of the other ways that it happens because this is where my focus is. Then that same person could be stood in the supermarket and there's a person stood behind her that really likes her and wants to engage in conversation, yet she's completely oblivious to it because her unconscious mind is almost like tunnel vision. Your mind brings into your awareness the things that you focus on. This is why, you know, when you decide that you want a certain car and suddenly it appears everywhere.
Yes.
There's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, which filters through all of the information that is available to us and then brings into our conscious awareness the bits that are relevant to us. So it's like the bits that we focus on that are important to us. It will go, yoo-hoo, over here, yoo-hoo, you're over here. And the rest of it, we're like, no, didn't even see it. So that person stood behind them, going, hello. How are you? Or the group, you know, on Facebook where there's similar interests and there's somebody that is available and ready for them, don't even know because they've got a one-track mind. So when it comes to setting goals, it's accepting, right, I've consciously decided what it is, then letting your unconscious mind do the work for you. So saying, this is the step that I'm going to do. And whilst I do it, this is the next known piece. And I'm completely open to all of the ways that the next step might present itself because I don't even know what it is yet. So being okay, which can be uncomfortable, with just knowing the next step. And then when you get there, just knowing the next step and then the next step. So it is a bit like that sat nav, you're just waiting for the next instruction and letting your unconscious mind bring that to you without saying, no, it has to be down this particular road. If it's not down this road, then I'm not going. Because yeah, the sat nav might want to divert you and say, hey, here's the scenic route, or here's the person that you didn't consider. So again, takes a bit of, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And it's always a bit uncomfortable, which is where, like, how can I begin to embrace that discomfort and see it as, almost reframe it in your mind as being exciting. You know, a bit like Christmas Eve. You don't know what your presents are going to be. You trust that they're going to arrive.
Right.
It's that childlike excitement of, oh, I wonder what it will be. I wonder where the path will take me.
Yeah. And with your example, I was thinking of how, that person, they're focused on the app, but they still need to be flexible because of maybe the meeting the person behind them or in the face group, and they have to be open, just allow that flexibility, but know that next step. They've already, they've gotten on the app, maybe they're mingling with people that way, but just to be open the surroundings, because we never know, just taking that next step brings those other opportunities to us.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be that, the next thing that plants in that person's mind is, right, I'll go on the app because that's the first thing that I know. That's the most simple step that I can do. And that's me taking action, and I'm going to interact with people. And also maybe other things will present themselves. So keeping that kind of open vision of, oh, what else could this be? What other presents am I going to get on Christmas morning that I didn't think were going to be there?
Right. So I know you've written a book, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So my book is, it's called Activate Your, it's called Activate Your RAS. I thought I was being funny with Activate Your RAS. But it is the reticular activating system, and it's the art and science of creating your reality from the inside out. So that part of your brain that filters through all of the external information and then brings into your awareness the things that you're focused on, just like, you decide you want a car and then it's everywhere. And it's like, was that car always there? Or why is it that you're suddenly noticing it wherever you go? So the book is all about understanding how is it that we perceive our reality? How is it, that we create the perceptions that we do, and why is everybody different to each other? And then when we have a goal, how can we begin to train our brain and reprogram it to begin to filter out the world in our favor. So how can we, become aware of the programs that might be running that are stopping us from noticing that person in the queue, realizing there's a Facebook group that we could join, and then beginning to shift it so that we can shift our reality as well. Because when we change the way I think of reality, and this isn't something I made up, I know I read it somewhere, but I don't know where, is the mirror, the world is a reflection of us. We see the world as we are, not as it is. And you can think of it just like a mirror. If you're looking in the mirror and you don't like the reflection, you don't start drawing on the mirror to change the reflection. And think, oh no, I'm going to, change my lipstick color. You change yourself.
Yeah.
And then the reflection is different. So the book is really understanding how is it that we've created this reflection in the first place? And if we don't like it, what can we do to fix it? It was all prompted off the back of learning and about the law of attraction and manifestation. And it was, I stumbled across this thing where it said your thoughts create your reality. And probably like many of your listeners, many people out there, the question I had was, that's lovely, I believe it, and how do I change my thoughts? Because they felt like they were just thinking me on repeat. So the book's filled with the information that makes you understand how that happens, but then also really practical exercises at the end of each chapter to implement it. So I think it's nice to read about it, but then what do you do with that information?
Right. The implementation is the most important part, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's perfect. That is so cool. I think that is so fascinating, just our thoughts and how we perceive the world. And like you're saying, we need those steps of implementation to really change, because you can read all about it or hear all about it, but if you're not going to take the steps to change, it's not going to do anything for you. And so
and it can create a negative spiral almost, because if you think, say somebody's struggling with a belief that they're not good enough, or they're always going to fail, and they read a book and it's got all these wonderful methodologies and learnings and things like that they are, I believe in this stuff, it's true. And then they put it to one side and they get another book, and they put it to one side and they get another book, and the cycle continues. What that can end up doing is then reinforcing a belief that they're not good enough, because it's like, now I've got all this evidence because I've read all of these books and nothing has changed. It's like we take ourselves with us. So this book is almost a pause button to say, yeah, you've probably got plenty of information already, and if you haven't, then this is a great starting point. So let's begin to embody that to break those cycles and start creating new ones.
Yeah. And I've actually been I don't know if it's a learning junkie or whatever before, where you just read or listen to things, but then I don't implement. So yeah, the same, just, you're not going to change. And it can be a negative in a way, just like that you're not progressing in any way. So perfect examples. A thought I had was, if, with the world today, and especially younger people who are so tech savvy and always on electronics, and even other ages and stuff, it seems like their mind is being just on a cycle of dopamine, right? They're just getting a hit, and so they're not taking time to think. So how do you think that affects their reality of their life, because they're always just, scrolling or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think there's so much impact to it on many different levels. Firstly, to go off what you said there about the dopamine hit, I think that can sometimes be the issue when it comes to goals. Circling back to where we began with are you in it for the long haul? Because we're often looking for that quick fix. This hasn't happened today, so forget it, I'm going to give up. I put a post out on Instagram and I haven't got a business already. What's happening to the world? And reading other people's success stories can reinforce that, because it's they're seeing the end result of maybe years of hard work that wasn't spoken about, or isn't the shiny bit because they weren't following them then. So that this is where again reinforces that, and also the comparison of seeing somebody's highlights versus your real life,
right,
begin to make you question, what's wrong with me, and not feeling good enough. Like, life shouldn't be as it is. We shouldn't have the moments of boredom or feeling down, and they are just part of a natural cycle of life. So there's all that side of things to it. The other thing when it comes to the brain that I think is having a big impact is because people are on devices, they're often kind of in tunnel vision. So they're looking at a screen and their eyes shut down to just focus in on one thing, whether it's a laptop, an iPad, an iPhone, or any other provider. They're in tunnel vision. Now, what that does in your mind, when you go into tunnel vision, it's called foveal vision, which is the state, it accesses your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight.
Okay.
So when you're in fight or flight, you go into, because I've just got to focus on what's right in front of me. It's stress state, it's high alert, your cortisol's pumping around the body, there's adrenaline, all this stuff happening, which is fine for a short period of time, because that's what it's there for. It's when we're in stressful situations, we're able to react and respond. Yet to live in that mode continuously, training the brain to just always be in a mild state of fight or flight is not good for the body.
Yeah.
So this is where, I believe things like anxiety are being heightened, because not only is the expectations in the world and that people put on themselves, but also physiologically we're training ourselves to be in a state of stress.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
taking time to open up that vision, to kind of become aware of your surroundings, to move away from the screen, to go and breathe, because as you look at the phone, are you really taking deep breaths? Probably not. So again, the whole body is just in this anxious state. So to link it back to where we started as well, with the imagining your goals in the future, it's like get yourself into that nice state physically before you begin doing that exercise, so that your body is supporting your mind, your nervous system is on board as much as possible, because the body and the mind are interlinked, they're connected.
Yes. And it's just being aware of self, basically. Just not the world, take the world out of it and look inward and really understand yourself and your thoughts. And like your breathing. And I'm always about getting out in nature for a little bit every day, right? Just get out of the chaos of your mind and just relax, and so you can not be in that fight or flight. So
even when people go walking these days, you see them with their phones in their hands. They're not even looking at what's around them. And
And something I learned too, I was listening to something that, even if you're not looking at your phone, but maybe you're in a conversation with somebody, you're sitting at a table and your phone's on the table, your mind is still, if that phone rang, your mind's going to go, like, you're still wondering, or you're still, so you need to just put it away, like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
And things, the dopamine hit that you said about the likes on social media and comments and things like that, and the meaning that people attach to it in their mind. If I get likes, this means people like me, or I'm popular, or I'm doing well, or whatever it might mean. And if they don't like my post, then what does that mean? That is that awareness of, this is the work that I need to do, because people liking your social media post doesn't mean anything at all other than the meaning that you give to it. And that's the important part. You could have nobody like your post at all, but if you like you and you're okay with you, then I shared my post, I had fun.
It's that next step of action. I think just, it doesn't matter what the outside world is thinking. If you're progressing within yourself, that's the goal right there.
And that, that the action in and of itself, it can be, I like to use the analogy of, if somebody wants to run a marathon, the goal is run however many miles. The first step might be, I got to go get trainers. I got to, get some gym gear. Then I'm actually going to go run. And then maybe I'll get a trainer along the way, because I realize when I'm running that this probably isn't going to work, because my shins are sore afterwards. Maybe so. The very action of just getting out there and running will bring into your awareness what it is that you need to do next. You could sit and plan, right, get me a trainer, do run this route, run on this kind of path, these trainers, but actually going and running is the quickest way to work out, oh gosh, these are the obstacles. And it's the same with the mental and emotional stuff. There's nothing quite like knowing what are the beliefs that are holding me back than going to put yourself out there and go, oh, what come up? Like, what was the thought process? What must I believe is true for me to think this way and feel this way? And then that can be the very action. The very action could be, I'm going to go and resolve this. I'm going to work with a coach. I'm going to buy a book. I'm going to meditate. That could be the action that you take alongside all the other steps.
Yeah, messy action will get you going forward. That's perfect. Sian, this has been so fascinating. And this topic is just amazing to me. Will you tell the listeners where they can connect with you and get your book and all the good stuff?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably the best place to come and hang out with me. And I've got all the links there to my book and everything. Otherwise, they can head to Amazon. And I've also got a podcast, Vibrant Mind, Vibrant Life, where I share weekly tips and insights into all things mindset.
Awesome. Yeah. So we can go over there and learn so much more from you and get your book. So I appreciate you taking the time to be on here, and I'll have all those links in the show notes as well, so that everybody can quickly pop over and get to know you and connect with you. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and being with me on the Live Greater podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.